Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Tanner's Favorite Things. I'm Tanner Knight, and today we're talking about this Kramer Baretta with a unique Dennis Kline airbrush design. So if you haven't been keeping tabs, we've been documenting guitars from my good friend Gregg's guitar collection. This series is called the Gregg Collection, as you might have guessed, and all of these guitars belong to Gregg and are for sale. And if you haven't caught the previous episodes, we've covered a few Kramers already. This is the last Kramer to cover until we move to the ESP side of things. But that's the Gregg Collection. Gregg is a really, really good guitar player, and he plays fast, he shreds. So this is his style of guitar. I'll come clean, this is not my style of guitar. I can't play these guitars hardly at all. You know, I'm an okay guitarist. I'm not a great guitarist. I'm not even a good guitarist. But I love guitars nonetheless, and I'm a nerd. So that's really what we're here to do, is to nerd out about these friggin' awesome guitars. So on the last episode of the Gregg Collection, we talked about the Baretta in what was a shattered glass Dennis Kline airbrush design. This is still a Dennis Kline airbrush design, but it's actually commemorating a very specific moment in history. Again, this is a 1986, and if you recall, 1986 is when Halley's Comet last graced us with its presence. So I believe that's like an 80 or 90 year cycle, and it's pretty unique when it comes around. So 1986 was a big Halley's Comet year, and they made about 62 of these is what I can find. Dennis Kline airbrushed up 62 different. They're the same design, but they're all slightly different due to the fact that they are hand airbrushed. He used stencils to get most of the design, but there's always going to be slight variations in pressure of the paint, the spray can, or whatever application happens. So there's always going to be subtle differences, and not any one of these is the same as any of the others. This one right here is number 2. Pretty cool. I mentioned 62 as kind of my best guess as how many of these were made based on a few different sources online. The Kramer Forum has a lot of really good information about these Kramer guitars from the 80s, and there's just a lot of people who really loved these guitars back in the day and just kind of are wealths of knowledge just at the drop of a hat. But this Baretta is a single humbucking pickup, very common amongst the Baretta line, as you might have remembered from our last episode. We're not going to go too deep into the Baretta aspect of things because we did cover it so well in the Shattered Glass episode. Everything that applies to that guitar applies to this one. It's 1 year earlier, that was an 87, this is an 86. So you do get the regular Kramer logo, the non-pyramid style, where all letters are the same exact size. So that's an 86 attribute. I'm pretty sure all of these Kline Comet guitars did get a rosewood fretboard, so that's what we've got, a rosewood, pretty thick, looks like a slab kind of rosewood fretboard on a 3-piece maple neck made by ESP in Japan. And I'll mention that once again, ESP did make the bodies and the necks of these guitars, and they were relatively unfinished when they made them and sent them over to the Kramer factory in New Jersey, and that's where Dennis Kline and Company finished these guitars up in the United States. So it's a kind of weird amalgamation of made in Japan, finished in the United States, but I think people call these the American series just because they are actually assembled in America. And you can see Kramer American right here on the headstock as well. It's kind of confusing for a lot of people. They think, oh, American must be made in America 100%. And that's just not the case. It doesn't mean that these are bad guitars by any means. It actually means they're really, really freaking good guitars, because ESP is known for making excellent quality guitars. We're going to see that in the next couple episodes here, but sticking with Kramer, we're still kind of in the ESP land just by default. In 86, we did have this pointy beak headstock. This is after all of the transitions where you see at the very beginning they used the actual Fender licensed headstock. I don't think they licensed it, they just used it and got a nice cease and desist. And that evolves over time to become more of like a banana style, and eventually it becomes this pointy beak style, turned down beak style. And that's what we've got here all the way to the end of Kramer's run in 1990. I'm not sure what kind of tone wood we have for the body. It's probably poplar or something like that. It's pretty light. Can't say that it's maple or even mahogany or anything like that. So I would say it's one of the cheaper tone woods like poplar, maybe basswood. Not exactly sure, but when they paint them, they don't need to be pretty. So the prettiness is in the design. And this is a poly finish. One thing, I don't know, people love or hate with the poly finish is that it protects the artwork really well. Sometimes the poly finish can yellow and change the tint of the artwork, but in this case it looks pretty dang, well, maybe yellowed a little bit here on this wider section, but it looks pretty dang clear otherwise. This specific guitar is not in the greatest condition. It has been played, it's been gigged, I would imagine. It's got nicks and dings all over the edges, and the most egregious one is right here on the neck. You can see there's a bit of finish missing right there on that neck pocket. And, you know, let's take a look at this neck pocket here while we're here. No cracks, nothing too concerning there, but you can see that that paint has flaked away from the corner here. And you don't feel it when you're playing it. You don't even see it when you're playing it, but it's one of those things that's there. The other egregious thing is on the front of here. It's just kind of a little raised area. I don't know if you can pick this up. Let me see if I can get it in the light. But it's just a little bit of a bruise is the best way to describe it. It's not through the finish. It's not into the wood. It's just like a little raised area that has some depressions. And there is some clear coat coming apart right here by the Floyd Rose. That's the only other spot where the clear coat is coming apart. The headstock also has its fair shares of nicks and dings, just little tiny things that add up to just this guitar being a player. It has seen its share of play, and it has rocked for who knows how long, at least since 1986. So these Dennis Kline designs are airbrushed, so that's just something to be aware of. He was an airbrush artist. They had a few on staff at Kramer, but he was the guy, apparently, when it comes to airbrushing cool designs on these kind of stock guitars. This particular guitar does come with an actual German Floyd Rose tremolo, and it works great. I'll get the whammy bar in here for the playing demo, but you know, it's a regular Floyd Rose with 3 springs on the back. Let's take a look at the back here since we have both of these open here. The tremolo cavity is completely open. You can see our tremolo and the springs attaching to the 3 claws. Very Stratocaster in design. And then our pocket for the controls is just a single potentiometer and some wires out to the input jack and the pickup. About as basic and simple as it could get. And again, the Baretta was a guitar of Eddie Van Halen. That was when Kramer and Eddie were collaborating, and he was trying to make the best guitar for him. He had modded earlier Stratocasters and Explorers and other guitars pretty heavily before then, and he's very famous for that. So when he actually partnered up with Kramer, this is his first real guitar endorsement, and he wanted to get it right. And this is what they came up with. Single humbucker, single volume knob, no tone. Couldn't get any simpler. Awesome. Our serial number is an E serial number, as we learned in a few different videos. The E is typically 8586, so that's an E3412. Not terribly early in the run of E plates, but you know, within the first 4,000. I think they made probably upwards of 10,000 in the E series. I think they go beyond the 10,000 starting with E, F, and G. So we don't have an exact number of guitars with those plates, but they made quite a bit. This is when Kramer was really rocking. They were super popular, and they were just changing things up kind of willy-nilly and not necessarily sticking to what their catalog spec was. So you can see a lot of variations within the same model year. These guitars are also known for being swapped out with necks, pickups, tuners, you name it. They're mod platforms, and that's what the players of these guitars were known for doing. And it's not uncommon to find mismatched bodies and necks, pickups, and it doesn't necessarily affect the playability of the guitar, but from a collecting standpoint, it definitely affects the value. The Kramer Baretta series of guitars is a 25.5-inch scale length, so very Fender-like in that regard. The body shape, I would say, is also very Strat-like. It's slightly different, obviously, just so they don't get sued, but we do have the comfort curve here, which is very deep, much deeper than a Fender Strat, and just a little more contouring in general, I would say. But the shape is very reminiscent of it. Just for comparison, here is an actual Fender Strat side by side with this guitar. Pretty close. But you can tell that that comfort carve is definitely a bit more aggressive than the Fender one. Of course, with the Floyd Rose system, we do have a locking nut, which works perfectly. All parts are there and functional. These Barettas do have a tilt back headstock. I'd say it's probably 12 or 13 degrees. I don't have an angle finder to get the actual dimensions, but you can see that it is tilted back without a scarf joint. So they're just crafted like that. Really nice. Tiny little volute, just a little bump, and these little holes here for the locking nut. I love that Kramer gives you the tools that you would need to adjust this Floyd Rose system. They're just baked in right here on the back of the headstock. 2 different sized Allen keys, one for the locking nut and another for the saddles. Another pretty cool thing about this particular guitar is it does come with the original COA, which is the Certificate of Authenticity, which it says Kramer right on top. I guess this could probably be fake, but this is an authentic one. This is what they look like. I've seen a couple others with the Comet guitar specifically. You can see that it says, "It is hereby certified that this guitar number 2 is part of the first and only edition of Month of the Comet," meaning they're not going to make another run of this guitar. "It is officially endorsed by Kramer Music Products as a true original of the highest quality and a true example of superior graphic art. Gives a serial number, E3412, owner's name." I doubt he's owned this guitar in a long time. And the date of purchase was 6/24/86 with Dennis Bendini or something like that, the president of Kramer Music Products, signing it. So there you go. That's a cool little item that comes with this guitar. As well as the back plates, we do have the Trem back plate, which is a 3-piece black, white, black, or 3-layer rather. And then the electronics cover looks like, I don't think this is the original, but it does exist and it is cut to the right size. So since we talked about the Baretta as a model so much in the last video, let's just get right to a playing demo. I'm going to play through the 5150 once again, the PV5150, just the metal amp, of my heart at least, and that one will be plugged into this orange 2x12 PPC 2x12 cabinet with 2 Celestion Greenback speakers. Capturing the sound is just a single Sennheiser E906 on that left-hand speaker, so we'll just get a single mono sound. We won't do stereo or anything. But this is really the main application for this guitar, is playing heavy, playing metal, getting dirty. Yeah. So let's hear it. All right, we'll hear the cleans on this guitar, but first, I think we should do things a little out of order. Let's go right to the lead channel on the 5150 and hear this thing rowdy. That's one of the stiffer Floyd Rose tremolos I've ever felt. That's crazy. Those 3 springs must have a lot of strength in them. But they keep things in line, perfectly in tune. Maybe not. So that's one of the first times this Floyd Rose system has gone wildly out of tune just from playing it for a few seconds. I kind of think these are brand new strings. I can't speak for certain, but they feel really new. So let's just chalk that up to new strings stretching out as we play. So I'll try to keep this thing in tune as best we can for the purpose of this video, but just know that that is something that might be happening with this guitar. would say that sounds awesome. That's exactly what you would expect out of a neck Seymour Duncan. I didn't mention that earlier, but this is a Seymour Duncan humbucker. So exactly what you would expect. Okay, obviously it can do the high gain stuff. This guitar pretty much was built for the 5150 amp, but let's go ahead and hear the cleans just for kicks, as this is a humbucking guitar. Should do cleans just fine. Super chimey, very nice cleans. Not what I would consider extra trebly like a single coil, but it's not that. It is a humbucking pickup. So it does dirt, it does clean. Let's hear something slightly in between. Let's go with the Ibanez Tube Screamer. This is my go-to rhythm crunch pedal when I don't want to blow the doors off, but I want to add a little bit of boost in the signal just to keep things moving a little bit. Here's a Tube Screamer. Seems to be staying in tune a bit better now that I've kind of just messed with things a little bit. But this guitar sounds great with the Tube Screamer. Nothing out of the ordinary. I didn't expect it to sound terrible, so there you go. But the Tube Screamer works just great. Okay, that's about all that I wanted to cover with this specific guitar. Again, it is a 1986 Kramer Baretta. This particular one has the Dennis Kline Comet airbrush scheme on it, and number 2 of 62. Pretty cool. This guitar is for sale, so if you have fallen in love with it and would like to be the next owner, let me know and we can broker some sort of deal, and hopefully we can get this in your hands. So as always, I like to end these videos with a bit of a full mix situation. So I'll create a loop and lay down a loop with a rhythm guitar track, a bass, and a drum track, and then I'll just put a stupid little lead on top of that, and that way you can hear this guitar kind of in the context of a full band. So let me know if you have any questions about the Kramer Baretta, the Comet series in general, and hopefully we can start a discussion in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you like this type of content. That always helps me out. Otherwise, we'll play out with the loop, and I will see you on the next one.